Hello DragonCraft, it's DC's Warcrow from DragonCraft Productions and welcome to another video. This time we'll be looking at Lord of the Rings, War in the North and answer this question. Should you play it or not? The Lord of the Rings franchise has been adapted into pretty much everything you can imagine. Books of course, movies, comics, novels, video games and so on. There's a rich lore and background in Tolkien's world and if will be, there will be enough material for many generations to come. War in the North tries to follow up on that by offering an original story while the events in the movie happen. But let's take things from the beginning, shall we? War in the North is a hack and slash game with some RPG elements. You get to choose from a trio set of characters, namely Thorin, a dwarf from Erebor, Andriel, an elf from Rivendell, and Eradan, a ranger. Each character have their own strengths and weaknesses, but everyone is adept to melee and range attacks. Thorin is the most proficient when it comes to melee combat, while Eradan is very skillful with a bow, and Andriel has an array of spells that she can use to aid her friends. Their journey starts in Bree, where they meet Aragorn, who asks them to check a location north of the town in order to help him on his quest. Now, we know that he's waiting for Frodo to arrive, but he refuses to tell you anything about it. All that he asks is to keep the enemy's eyes focused upon you while you wreak havoc away from him. Soon after, you arrive at Fornost. After many orcs are felled by your mighty fellowship, you meet Agandaur, a black Númenórean who has been taught the dark arts from Sauron himself and aspires to conquer the whole of the North in Sauron's name. It's up to you to stop him. In your quest to bring down Agandaur, a lot of allies show up, the most important of which is Belaram, an eagle under the command of Gwaihir, the Windlord. While in open areas you can summon Belaram to rain death upon your enemies, something he does pretty well actually. That's the basic synopsis of the story. It basically tells of a new tale of champions of Middle-earth against Sauron. Here's where things get a bit tricky. This story is non-canon definitely because Agandaur is a character that will have at least be mentioned due to his importance and the deeds that he sought to do, but it could have been tied to the actual story were it not so rushed. While the story is simple and straightforward enough, sometimes it's just too much so. It's completely linear as well. However, the game follows the lore of the books more closer than the movies, resulting in a nice surprise if you have read them, or like me, have read them like 10 times already. Let's move on to the characters now. The trio cast of main characters fail to make you feel attached to them, even if you have been close to death countless times already, or when the story progresses further. They're just there to get on with it really, and the voice acting definitely doesn't help. Almost all voice acting is mediocre unfortunately, with the exception of Belaram and possibly Gandalf. However, everyone is using his, what I like to call the Lord of the Rings talk, where basically they sound exactly like how talking like to use words, which is a definite plus for me. This is a good time to mention soundtrack as well, and as many of you know by now, I believe the soundtrack to be of utmost importance when it comes to video games. A rather unfortunate event, but I honestly expected more of the soundtrack. It's too generic and really unremarkable for getting it moments after I'm done with that level or battle. Let's talk about graphics now. We're looking at a very old game by today's standards, but the graphics have aged rather well, and there are a lot of details to be seen around the areas you visit. Also, they try to do a combination of the events of the movies alongside the scenery described in the books, so the end result is rather good actually. Rivendell looks exactly like how I imagined it, and some ancient dwarven ruins, although definitely inspired by Moria, they have a certain flair to them. The character models look good too, with believable facial animations, and the models of the characters resemble the actors who played their counterparts in the movies. In general, you won't be too blown out of your mind, but you will definitely enjoy the scenes that unveil in front of you. Moving on to the gameplay, and most importantly in this type of game, combat. Okay, so cutting off limbs from orcs, or more often than not their heads, is more enjoyable than I would care to admit, but the combat tends to be really repetitive after a short while. It's all about killing everything in sight, move on, kill everything in sight, move on, and rinse and repeat. There are two types of attacks that you can use, one being the standard attack and the other the hard attack, which is lower than the first but deals more damage and often breaks the defense or shields of your opponents. There are also special attacks that you can use, each character have their own skill set, but there is really a small variety of attacks that you can use. More often than not, you will find that your basic attacks are the best you can use, as they don't require spending your mana and they pretty much do the same damage as your special skills. The combat itself tends to be rather repetitive after a short while too, as it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. It doesn't even become mindless fun, as sometimes you have to be on your toes for some attacks that you think are too far away or that you did dodge but they can still hit you. Likewise, you can't always rely on your parry command, and personally I only used it a couple of times before disregarding it completely. War in the North shines in co-op, however. Having one or two friends around can make the whole difference, and using it with your friends online, you can easily forget the various bugs or shortcomings of the game. To be fair, the AI control is not half bad, especially considering the age of the game. While War in the North offers online multiplayer, unfortunately it's dead. Yeah, too dead. To sum up, Lord of the Rings War in the North is a game that you should play, especially if you're a fan of the franchise. You won't be blown away from the game itself, but War in the North I think is a really good example that games really don't have to be AAA titles in order to enjoy our favorite medium of entertainment. Thank you for watching, folks. Tell me in the comments below which Lord of the Rings game you enjoyed the most and how it fares against War in the North. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for more content. Have a good one.